Hello, we're the Accidental Aliens, and you're on with... Nope, we're not on anything. You're on with Probing Talk. Wait, Probing Conversations.
Hello, and welcome to the third episode of Probing Conversations.
That would have actually been all right.
Yeah, thanks,
Go
Travis.
Go ahead.
Hello, and welcome to the third episode of Probing Conversations. I'm Andy Ducliffe.
I'm Travis Rivas.
And I'm Scott Lost.
We're still working this out. The point is...
We're talking about Shazam today.
Shazam.
We should try that again and say we're the Accidental Aliens, because we never say we're the Accidental Aliens.
Do we not?
Can we say it at the same time? 3, 2, 1. We're the Accidental Aliens.
No.
Hello, and welcome to Probing Conversations. I'm Andy Ducliffe.
I'm Travis Rivas.
And I'm Scott Lost.
And we're the Accidental Aliens, here to talk about Shazam.
I
was supposed to say that? We're just
You didn't even say that it was episode 3. We just talked about it.
So this is our fourth attempt at this, but we're gonna keep it going because this is ridiculous. Before we start talking about Shazam today, we're gonna get in a bit of news. Travis, what are we talking about?
We're still going?
Yes. So what are we talking about today, Travis?
Today we're going to be talking about Shazam. We're also going to be doing a little bit of Star Wars news. For those of you who don't know, Star Wars Celebration is going on right now, and we've had a bit of news coming out. We had a new trailer and a new title for Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. So we're going to be getting into that. So J.J. Abrams directed Episode 7, and then he left, and Rian Johnson came in and directed Episode 8, which was a controversial film, to kind of say the least. Critics pretty much loved it. People in the fan community were very, very split. Originally, Colin Trevorrow, who directed Jurassic World, was supposed to come in and direct Episode 9, but due to creative differences, J.J. Abrams came in and he's directing Episode 9 instead. And
which I'm happy about,
right,
personally.
Right. I personally liked Episode 7, Force Awakens, more than Last Jedi, so I'm happy about it. Andy, how do you feel?
So I might be in the minority, but I didn't hate The Last Jedi. I don't think it was the best out of the Star Wars movies, but I found it enjoyable. But then again, I didn't really grow up with the trilogy, so I didn't have that sentimental attachment. Kind of understanding the context now, I understand why it ruffled a lot more feathers than I think they were intending.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the fan base have a huge problem with it because one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars is Luke Skywalker. My favorite character, along with Yoda, my goddaughter's favorite character, along with Yoda. And they basically kind of trashed him. Like, he was kind of a shell of his former self. He kind of degenerated. Like, if Luke was just raised on Tatooine and never became anything, like, maybe he would have just became this guy, like some grump drunk that's drinking blue milk out of, random monsters. But that's not my Luke. That's not who I wanted him to be.
Hashtag not my Luke.
Right. So there was a lot of problems with it. It was like counseling that I've had with some of my friends. Like, well, but I like this scene and I like this scene. Wait, did I like this movie? But I know that the feeling leaving the theater, we were like, yeah, that was okay. You're just like really struggling with what you had just watched. And the conclusion I came to is, and actually thanks to you, you had said, there are a lot of good moments, but it doesn't make for a good movie. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what it was. There was a ton of cool moments. But overall, it was just like, yeah, they just kind of, Rian Johnson just trashed all of the loose strings and plot lines that JJ left for him.
Yeah, and without getting into a full review of Last Jedi, I actually really enjoyed the Luke arc in that. But what you were saying is Rian Johnson trashed those threads. So one of the things we're hearing about before Episode 7 came out from the Lucasfilm camp and Kathleen Kennedy is that we have these movies planned out. We know where these story arcs are going. We know where these characters are going. We know beats A, B, and C, and D, E, F, so on and so forth. So there's this idea that everything that happens in these saga films is part of the plan. Well, J.J. Abrams recently kind of came out in an interview and kind of pulled the curtain back and kind of let fans know there isn't really a plan, that a lot of these films are sort of being made up as they go along. And I think that's something else that's ruffling fans' feathers. And let me read the quote for you guys. JJ said to have no script, and this is he's referencing right as he got brought back on as director, right after Colin Trevorrow had to leave the project. To have no script and to have a release date and have it be essentially a 2-year window when you're saying you've got 2 years from the decision to do it. Or sorry, you've got 2 years from the decision to do it to release. It was daunting, Abrams said, and you have literally nothing. You don't have the story, you don't have the cast, you don't have the designers, the sets. There was a crew, and there were things that will be worked on for the version that preceded ours, but this was starting over. And so that, I think, is a big shift from other saga films where, George Lucas kind of had this, it might have been a loose plan, but he had a plan where he was going with both the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. And then this is just really kind of making it up as we go along.
Like he had a vision.
Right.
So it's like I have a vision of where I want this to go, but he had his, his crew or whoever help him get there. Whereas this is like, I don't know what's going on. So I'm wondering if JJ actually did kind of have a plan for the threads that he had built up. Maybe he was like, well, this is where I want to go with these threads. Like, you kind of, I don't know, like, you're a writer, I'm an artist. You'll get an idea in your head, like, okay, here's kind of the basis of the story, and here's what I think that we can do with these things. So maybe he's like, hey, well, here were my plans. And Rian Johnson's like, nah, we don't need any of those. So all the stuff that he was planning on building up, since Ryan burned those and they're gone, he can't do anything with them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I don't even think you can really put all the blame on Rian Johnson.
Yes, I can.
I think you can. I
can and I will.
I think a lot of it goes to Kathleen Kennedy and how, if she's in charge of Lucasfilm right now, and if she's in charge of kind of shepherding these films, much like Kevin Feige with MCU, Kevin Feige has a whole plan for his phases, right? He knows that in phase 1, we start with Iron Man, and we have to end with the Avengers, and we need to sew all these threads to get there.
Right.
And so it's really ultimately her responsibility to make sure that her filmmakers that she brought in are kind of following this plan. And it kind of seems like that she didn't really have that in her mind. Andy, what do you think?
I don't follow this stuff at all, so I can't really comment on the behind the scenes stuff. All I know is that I did appreciate how The Last Jedi sort of subverted expectations, but again, just
yeah.
Well,
everyone expected it to be good, and it wasn't.
yeah.
You got us, Rian Johnson. That's right. I do put it on you, Rian Johnson.
Yeah.
All of it.
So I mean, again,
I loved Looper though, Ryan. It was amazing.
Looper was good. I did like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have much to contribute
That's
about
fine.
this, but
That's okay.
Yeah.
All right, so before we get into Shazam, we're going to actually rewatch the trailer for Star Wars: Rise of the Skywalker, right?
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
The Rise of Skywalker.
The.
Cool beans. So we just watched the trailer, everybody. Isn't that nice?
It was. It was nice. It was very nice, actually.
Yeah.
It was a better trailer. I think for every Star Wars movie that's come out when I've been alive, at least the saga films, I've really enjoyed the trailers. Maybe not so much Last Jedi. I remember not being jazzed by those trailers, but Force Awakens and this one now, and even all the prequel trailers I thought were really well done.
Yeah. I love the shot of her doing the backflip with the TIE fighter? Or... Yeah.
Because she's walking on the sky.
Yeah.
That's what she's doing.
And it's giving me a rise in my pants. So hey, I had to get one in there. Yeah, it was a trailer.
Did you not like it?
No. I liked it. I just I have no emotional attachment to any of the characters, so I'm just like.
Oh.
So you didn't get any sense of excitement from watching it?
I mean, the music was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed the score so far. The cackle at the end kind of threw me off.
Do you know who that is?
I heard rumors that the Emperor is going to come back.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that they pretty much confirmed at Star Wars Celebration. They actually brought out Ian McDiarmid during it and said that he is in the film and that he is going to be having a part in it, and then that was specifically his laugh. I know, Scott, you and I, we had kind of talked the other night about how we thought maybe that was Luke, because this trailer starts off with Luke monologuing and then ends with this evil laugh, and maybe part of the journey, the Skywalker journey, Luke Skywalker's journey, is that he maybe after death he kind of goes down this darker path or something like that.
Right. Yeah, there was just uncertainty. I actually didn't know anything. I didn't know it was confirmed that he's in the film at all, so that's news to me. You hear the laugh, but it could mean anything. It could have been like, even Snoke. Like, maybe JJ was like, dude, I had plans for that guy.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, it was the, what was the Darth Sidious? Is that the...
Darth Sidious was the Emperor. Are you talking about Darth Plagueis?
Plagueis, right. So it's like, well, Darth Plagueis was rumored to be able to defeat death, to cheat death. So it was like, well, what if JJ had a plan for that? And he's like, no, forget that. I'm going to put him back together. We're going to figure this out,
I'm okay with it because Snoke was actually my I thought the least interesting part of Force Awakens. I really didn't care anything about him. I didn't find him very menacing at all.
That's because he didn't get to do anything. Like, so I wanted to see him do something. It's just like even the general. Shoot, oh well, I'm doing really great at this.
Captain Phasma.
Yeah, Captain Phasma. It's like she was visually interesting, but she never did anything. Yeah. Like every scene that she was in was kind of useless until she actually finally does something. And then you could look back and go like, hey, remember when Boba Fett was in the background of that? And like that in itself, this is for like long-term Star Wars fans. It's like, oh, Boba Fett was in the background of that one scene. That was cool, like just those tiny little things. So maybe, something would have happened to make Snoke interesting to you in this film, or maybe the second film if they were all directed by JJ. So that was my thing.
I just felt like he was a poor stand-in for the Emperor.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, when you brought up the score, so I really enjoyed the score, and every time I hear it though, a lot of the tones, it's similar to whenever Han and Leia would be romantic.
That's what that theme is. That's the Leia and Han love theme.
Yes, but they changed it slightly. There's a couple of different tones in there, so they were altering. They're using that as the basis, but then they were altering it. But every time I hear it, that's what I think of.
Yeah, well, they bring in Kylo's theme at the very end there, so it's very interesting to think. This film is called Rise of Skywalker. Ben Solo is technically a Skywalker. To have the score be Han and Leia's theme, but end with their kids' theme. Yeah. Maybe we got a clue there of who that Skywalker might be. I know we have some other theories. I have a particular theory. You have some things that you want to see. But Andy, since you're kind of the one who's most in the dark on this, when you hear Rise of Skywalker, what do you think?
I think Rise of the Skywalker Legacy. So, I mean, the movie The Last Jedi ended with, Luke nuking not Luke, but Yoda nuking all the Jedi books and just implying, like, it's time for a new age. I don't know. I'm kind of harking back to, like, or maybe not harking back, whatever. I'm thinking of Legend of Korra, how in the second season they kind of restart the Avatar cycle. So I think they're going a similar route as far as, like, the overall Jedi arc. And so Skywalker becomes more of a kind of like a figurehead, or like a, I don't know, like almost like a deity. Okay. Maybe not deity is the best way to describe it, but just a spiritual leader to guide this next generation of Jedis starting from scratch.
Specifically Luke Skywalker?
Specifically Luke Skywalker. But then I also heard another rumor. It was on Facebook, so I take this with a grain of salt. But someone was suggesting that Rey and Kylo Ren are going to have a kid together, or something, or imply that they're gonna have a kid together. They're probably not gonna make it as a couple, given their different outlooks on life. But yeah, so I hope that isn't the case. But what you're talking about with like the musical themes, it's within the realms of possibilities. It is. So,
one of the things I just wanted to respond to what you said is that Yoda didn't actually destroy the texts. If you see at the end of Last Jedi, Rey took them. Rey took them from the tree, and she has them in a compartment in the Millennium Falcon. So the texts are still there. It's just Luke, who was supposedly the last Jedi, he's gone. And so we'll see where we go from there. Scott, what do you think Rise of Skywalker means?
So we have a couple of theories. I usually take to the internet. Whenever there's a new trailer, I'll post something up and just kind of see what the fan base is saying out there. People that I know are fans from our comics or whatever. And a lot of there's a lot of mixed feelings out there, and it's not even just this particular trailer, it's just Star Wars in general. There's like a weird thing going on where a lot of the old fan base is just like, we just want it to end, like just whatever. And like for me, that's not the case. I'm like, I want this to keep going. I want it to be good, but it's in the trailer it says this is the end of the story.
End of the saga, right?
End of the saga, right? And then so there is a debate as to what that means, and it's just like, I personally, so this is not, I don't know what it's a theory. This is my hope. Let's just say that.
This is your new hope.
This is my new hope for this trilogy. Is Rey is a Skywalker, and that was my hope from the very beginning. But then,
and you specifically hoped that she was Luke's daughter, correct?
Right. So the way we get there, without upsetting people, because everyone's reply to that is, well, I don't want Luke. Then that means, oh, Luke's a deadbeat dad. It's like, okay, let's calm down. To not go there right away. So my thought on this is we haven't seen these characters since the Return of the Jedi, right? So they've lived an entire life. So easily Luke could have had a relationship. Maybe when he was instructing all the Padawans and teaching all the kids, he had a relationship. He was with someone. She got pregnant. He didn't know that she was pregnant. He attempted to murder his nephew, and then he fled because he didn't want to kill children. So I've had this bad thought. I need to get out of here. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. He leaves, his girlfriend or whoever is pregnant. He never knows she's pregnant. So ipso facto, he's not a deadbeat dad. He never knew that he was going to have a child. The mother relocates to Rey's home planet, has Rey. She takes a husband or whatever, claims the child as his own. Ta-da. Rey is a Skywalker. Nobody's a bad guy here. Luke just kind of bailed before he even knew he had a kid. So that's what I would like to happen, and then that way it can prove that her parents are not deadbeats or nobodies like said in The Last Jedi. My thought on that is Kylo can see in her mind what her innermost fears are. Her innermost fears would being that I'm a nobody, my parents are a nobody, I'm nothing, right?
And she's the one who says the line in Last Jedi. He goes, "You know who you are, right?" And she says, "I'm nobody." Or maybe she says, your parent, you know who your parents are. She says they're nobody.
Yeah, and then he goes, yeah, they were drunks, they were no ones, and this and that.
Sold you for beer money, and you're better off with me.
So he can see those fears,
right?
And so he's the one that's
that is that is also used very often as a manipulation tactic too. So he's preying on her innermost fears and just trying to say, you're nobody unless you're with me. That's why you have to team up with me from now on. I'm the only reason you have to stay relevant.
Right.
And if she has that inner belief that, oh no, like I can and will be something more than that and I don't need you to do it, then his, plan is foiled. But
right. Yeah. And then Travis, you have a completely different theory, which is actually very feasible and a lot of people like.
Yeah, and I actually as soon as I saw you and Stephen Schilling, who's another comic artist,
shout out, Steven.
You guys were having that conversation on Facebook. It just instantly came to me that the idea that the name Skywalker would actually be a new order that's not Jedi, that's not Sith, that is whatever name of the Force users going forward. So Skywalker is just that name of that order. So the Rise of Skywalker is the rise of that. And I think it fits very thematically in with the names of the third film in each trilogy. First we had Return of the Jedi, and then we had Revenge of the Sith, and now we have the Rise of Skywalker. So I think that fits in. I think I would prefer if Rey was not a literal genetic Skywalker. But if they can find a way to make that work, then I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah. And that one of the major complaints that the people that would be against that is, well, why does everybody have to be a Skywalker? Yeah. This is a Skywalker story. Yeah. 1 through 3 was Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, Luke and Leia Skywalker for 4 through 6, and then now we have Rey. It just makes sense. And I think, isn't that something George Lucas said a long time ago?
Yeah, he did set that up. He did say that these saga films are the stories of the Skywalker family. I think a couple of things that might rebuke that, though, would be, one, Disney threw out all of George's suggestions as soon as they took over. George even said in an interview, like, I gave them my ideas, and they didn't use any of them. The other thing I would say is that you could make the argument that this saga, or this trilogy, is not Rey Skywalker's story, but actually Ben Solo / Skywalker's story. So this is the story of him and his fall, maybe potential redemption, maybe not. So we might just have to watch and find out.
Right. I mean, that's all that we can do. We all have our theories, and we can say what we prefer to happen. And at the end of the day, they're going to do what they did. So,
but this is the fun part. This is what we do.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
Is what we do. Anything else on Rise of Skywalker before we move on?
No, I think we hit it all. So we're gonna hop into Shazam. So let's get into it. How did you guys feel overall about the movie? I personally loved it. I had a real fun time. It was one of those films where it didn't feel like there was anything that I needed. Like there wasn't a build up for anything. It's like once this movie's over. It's not building to a larger cinematic thing like an Avengers or something like that. So I went in just light and easy, knowing that this is just going to be a fun time, and it was.
Did you have any previous knowledge of Shazam from the comics, or did you know anything about his backstory or who he was?
Besides being originally published by Fawcett Comics, and I know a little bit about that, but largely about the character, not really. I know that Fawcett got into a lawsuit with DC.
Yeah.
Because DC was trying to stop Fawcett from publishing Shazam. Shazam actually became more popular than Superman at a period, and that's what really brought the lawsuit in hand.
Right.
And then the judge didn't know much about comics. Comics weren't really as big as they are now, so the judge was just like, yeah, they're practically the same character, so stop it.
Right. And I think maybe Shazam might have debuted first. Or excuse me, Captain Marvel, because for those of you who don't know, when the character of Shazam originally debuted, his name was Captain Marvel. And so I think he might have debuted first, but
I'm pretty sure Superman did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why DC won, is because Superman debuted first, so they could show that they.
But they actually didn't win the name of Captain Marvel.
Right. Yeah.
So now we have Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, and this version of Captain Marvel is Shazam, which they just renamed him to Shazam fairly recently, only within the last 10 years or so.
I think even the last 2 to 3.
It was during the New 52.
So that was 7?
The New 52 debuted in, I want to say, 2011.
Okay, 8.
Yeah,
8-ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where the name came from. My personal experience with Captain Marvel / Shazam, that's hard to say.
Tongue twister.
Yeah.
Take it away, Travis.
My experience with Shazam is I don't have much. I remember reading Kingdom Come, and him and Superman got into a big old fight there. That was pretty fun to watch. Other than that, I really haven't read much of the Jeff Johns stuff or any of that prior. Andy, did you have any previous experience with Shazam before watching this movie?
I think I've seen Shazam in some of the Justice League animated videos that we've watched together, movies. So I knew the basic concept was it's a 14-year-old or 13-year-old kid, and every time he says Shazam, he turns into this fully grown jacked superhero, but he's still a kid at heart because he's literally a kid. So just kind of going into that was my only predisposed knowledge. So I was kind of excited to kind of go into it cold. I'm like, okay, let's see what this has in store. And I hated the beginning of it. The villain's story arc I thought was super corny as hell.
The villain being Dr. Shyvana, is played by Mark Strong.
Yeah. So I was a little confused, the opening scene, because I just didn't know who the characters were. I was open-minded to it, but then after seeing the little gargoyle creatures, I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. okay, whatever. I don't know.
Seven Deadly Sins.
The
I
seven,
liked all of those.
I actually even liked his story arc. I was like watching, I'm
don't
like,
know.
oh, that sucks. His dad sucks. Like, you know, I felt bad for the kid. It was just like he wanted to be a good guy, and
I don't know.
his brother was a jerk to him, and his dad was a
Yeah.
jerk, and it's just like he's just a little kid, and they're treating
I don't
him
know.
awful.
I was more upset with like the wizard. He was like, "You're not pure of heart. You suck too." And I'm like,
Yeah,
like
that's a bit rough.
it's like, of course that kid's gonna be messed up by it.
so-
Then his dad gets into a car accident. So the beginning, I was just kind of like, God, I don't like the wizard guy at all.
Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't win me over with that.
No, not to mention, like, I get that it's supposed to be the original design, but like the Diet Gandalf with a giant super bolt in the middle, I was just like, that's a dumb design, but okay. But then when Billy came in, like, he immediately won me over. I'm like, this kid is amazing. Like, okay, like I don't hate it anymore. I was actually like live texting you in the theater.
Yeah,
and you were like
stop.
scolding me like, stop texting, and I'm like, I can't.
I told you to keep texting.
No.
I wanted just live
The
updates
live
as
So
Updates.
frustrating. Please don't be that person.
Sorry, yeah.
Don't be an Andy.
be that
Don't be an
person.
Andy.
Be an
No.
Andy.
Be an
Just
Andy. Don't be an
disconnect-
Andy.
Disconnect from your phone
You know what?
for 2 hours.
It counts if you're in the background.
Live your truth. Live your
No.
truth, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't do that. It's a dumb thing to do.
Anyway, so after Billy came in, I put the phone away.
That's nice of you
Yeah.
to be a courteous human. Go ahead, sorry.
So I was in the back row. No one cared. And if they did, then oh well. But so anyway, yeah. Shazam, loved the kind of foster kid sort of story arc. Thought that was very touching. The supporting cast were amazing. My only gripe was just with the villain. I thought he was cheesy. But knowing that this was supposed to be like, originally kind of like the rival to the Superman series, it kind of makes sense that the bad guy looks like Diet Lex Luthor.
And his dad was even played by Lionel Luthor from
Smallville.
Smallville.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked Billy Batson, the actor. He's really good. That kid. I thought he was a really good portrayal of the character of Billy Batson. So, and even Zach Levy as Shazam, it was really fitting. Like, I actually thought the little kid was a better actor than Zach Levy, but that's fine. Whatever. Freddy was probably my favorite character in the whole movie. He was just extremely entertaining. He was from It fame. He was the kid that was on all of the medication all the time. So yeah, he was an amazing actor as well. So Freddy was definitely one of my favorites of the two. He was a great, stepbrother, supporting cast member to Billy.
Initially I really liked it as well. I know that the movie Big, it was a pretty big influence on this film. So it was. I know Zachary Levi kind of talked about making this a superhero version of Big, which is great. I think it kind of sets it apart from a lot of the other superhero movies out there.
They even had a nod to it.
Yeah, with the piano.
The piano, yeah.
So that was really fun. Overall, this was a pretty great movie-going experience. It had a very unique feel to it, and those are my favorite superhero movies. Like Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't feel like any other movie you watch out there. Thor Ragnarok didn't feel like any other superhero movie out there. So
right, like it's like they're getting away from the formula
Right,
necessarily.
right.
Kind of got a loose formula there. It's still kind of there,
yeah.
but a lot of the tropes are gone.
Yeah. Much like how the X-Men, the Fox X-Men movies were doing towards the end there with Logan and Deadpool and the New Mutants. But
Yeah, they're trying to keep things afloat. It's just like what we're doing really isn't working, so let's try to change it up from what avert expectations in a good way. By trying to do something different.
Yeah, and actually, as I was watching it, my thought was, hey, DC did it. They finally made a Marvel movie. They literally made a Captain Marvel movie. Complete with the lackluster villain. I agree with Andy where I thought the villain was just not working for me at all. I thought he was boring. I thought his storyline was boring.
Did you like the Deadly Sins? Did you like those guys?
They were functionary. I thought their designs were pretty generic.
Yeah.
I think for something that is the 7 deadly sins, you really want it in their designs. I think you should really incorporate the greed
Each
and the
sin,
sloth
yes,
and the
absolutely.
lust and in that.
Like
And they were just giant smoke monsters that didn't really care.
I mean, they even say it in the movie, like, 7 deadly sins. Like, I gotta admit, I thought lust was gonna be, like, way hotter.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
Yeah. What was it? What was the one that he was hiding inside of him?
envy.
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 Yeah. So like I thought it would be like shriveled and I don't know, kind of disgusting. That was I would say if I had a complaint with this movie, that was my complaint, was the CGI. I thought the CGI was pretty poor. That seems to be a continuing trend with DC. Their other movie that I actually enjoyed was Wonder Woman, and the CG on that was pretty bad with the villain at the end. Ares.
Yeah.
CGI was really awful. His mustache didn't help. Like I think I was like, oh, the mustache, and then I could tell. Oh, no.
No, I was like, okay, yeah, he's the Chancellor, whatever. Then he was like, and this is my final form. I'm like, oh, you dig the
couldn't-
mustache, okay.
You couldn't, no?
No?
No, you need to keep, okay.
All right,
The
all right.
Aquaman CGI was actually pretty well done in a
I
lot
think
of
you were
places.
the only one that watched that.
Really?
I
On this?
haven't seen Aquaman
I've
yet.
not seen it.
Oh, the only one on this planet, by the way. That's what they're talking about.
That's it.
Yeah.
Jason Momoa hasn't even watched it.
I
Yeah.
don't know. He's too busy flexing.
It's a whole movie where Momoa is wet the whole time.
Stealing,
Like, why not?
stealing people's girlfriends.
Yeah.
The
DC. All right.
the Aquaman CGI was pretty good, but I have heard that complaint about this one is that they felt like the CGI wasn't great. I thought it was serviceable. I didn't think it was noticeably distracting. But I was pretty. I think in the beginning scene with like the characters in the car talking to Shyvana or Savannah, whatever it is, when he was a kid. That's when I felt like it was really noticeable. But then after that, I think I was pretty much into it. It was fine.
Okay, real quick, is it me or did the kid that played Savannah have like a mustache going on? I could have sworn I saw like
No.
like that
It's you.
awkward 10-year-old. Okay.
Okay.
All right. No further questions. Yeah.
Your Honor.
All right, thank you for. This is our edition of Shazam.
This awkward moment is brought to you by Andy.
Hi.
Andy, when you really have to tank any party that you're at, pick up an Andy.
Could have sworn that kid had a
I liked
mustache.
I don't know what they're called now, but the rest of the Marvel family.
Yeah, that's the thing. They don't really have a Marvel
Shazamites.
Marvel name.
The Shazamly
Yeah.
is what I've heard.
Yeah.
Which is
Shazamly.
not a favorite thing for me to say. That's not a great word.
Shazamly.
But I really like. Yeah, that's actually what they're being called.
What is it?
Shazamly.
They really are?
It has been stated other places.
Interesting.
Yes.
I
Interesting.
feel like that would be like a wing special at Chili's, you know.
Yeah.
Only now you can get the Shazamly pack. Like,
Well, speaking of names and what they're called, I thought one of the really funny running gags was Shazam not having a name, and even to the point where at the end where all the characters grab onto the staff and it says "Say my name," and they say Billy, and so they do have this running gag throughout. Where they try to say Captain Thunder, or Thunderclap, or like Sparkle Fingers. I think are Lightning Fingers,
Something like that.
which was kind of like a nice little like reference to Thor Ragnarok. I thought. Did anybody else want just one Captain Marvel reference?
Like I was waiting for something.
Yeah.
I actually think that it would still be kind of cool if they called her Mary Marvel. She was like, "What? It's my name."
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's not very good. What? It's my name. And it's just kind of like she could still be Mary Marvel.
Right.
Like, what if she wants to be her own person? Like.
I was kind of hoping, like, if you remember in Spider-Man 2, they were trying to come up with a name for Doc Ock, and one of the names they go like Doctor Strange, and J. Jonah goes, "That's great, but it's taken." So if they had like something where it's like, I am Captain Marvel,
Right.
kind of breaking the
I
fourth
wonder,
wall just a little
I
bit.
think, like, do they still technically own that, and they can actually, if they wanted to, they could actually still say it and have no legal problems, right?
I think with names, I don't know if you can really trademark a name. So I don't.
I think you can.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty sure of it. But I think it was such a weird thing in limbo that they kind of just left it alone for both companies to just deal with. So, but I think DC did the right move, and they're like, let's just knock it off. Like, we're just going to confuse the hell out of people, so let's just call him Shazam. He just can't say his own name, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, they want to have a distinct character that's not connected to their competition, basically.
I wonder how he would introduce himself to people. Like, if they're like, hey, so what's your name? And he just like, he's like, yeah, hold on one second. Yeah. He just writes it down and shows it to him because he can't say it.
Rhymes with Kazam.
I am marvelously here to help you.
I enjoyed all of the Foster brothers and sisters. I thought they were all really well cast. I like all the actors and actresses that they cast for those roles.
And I particularly like Darla.
Darla's fantastic.
She was amazing.
Yeah, all of them. Darla was really good, though. I really enjoyed her. And then the Asian kid, he was from Fresh Off the Boat.
Oh, yeah.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a little kid of Fresh Off the Boat.
His name, Henry, right? Was the character's name?
Henry, yeah.
Hey, which one was Darla?
Darla was the little girl.
The little girl. Oh, yeah. She was adorable. I'm a good big...
I do think it kind of speaks a little bit to one of the failings of the film that we kind of have to sit there and go like, who was this character? You know, who was that? Yeah, so I would have liked to seen maybe a little bit more with them.
It makes it a little easier when you're talking about which one's like, which one? This is the Asian kid.
Yeah.
Oh, I know who exactly you're talking about. I do like that. They diversified the cast, like, you know.
Yes, and that was, I think it was very purposeful to make it a diverse, inclusive family. Their foster father was Pacific Islander.
It was rad, taking one back. got a hot mamacita wife.
You have an African American young girl. You've got a Latino boy. You've got a
Latino mom.
Was she?
Hispanic.
Hispanic.
Oh yeah. That's right. That's
more
right.
Like Spanish than whatever.
Right. You've got the Asian kid. You've got the
Eugene. His name was
Eugene. Yeah, that's what it was. Eugene.
Played by Ian Chen. And then Darla I just saw her. Where are you? Faith Herman. Faith Herman. She was a great actress.
And then there was...
And Ian is fantastic and Fresh Off the Boat as well.
Yeah.
And then
you
Freddie...
got Pedro. Played one of the brothers. He was the Mexican kid. Heavy set. Jovan Armand. And then Mary Marvel. Where are you? Mary Bromfeld is Grace Fulton.
Right.
So, and then did you think that it was the same actress? Like, so when they became their Shazam counterparts?
Yeah.
Initially,
with Mary?
Yes. Initially, I was like, is that the same actress? They just kind of like grown up her makeup, you know? But then I saw her nose. Her nose was different. But it was very good casting in the sense that, like, she just looked like her.
And then, and we'll talk about it more later, but they also included Freddie, who is a character with a disability. So they were very, very purposeful to make an inclusive foster family as they could. And I felt like it was somewhere that it fit. It felt very natural because that is the reality of foster families a lot of the times.
Okay, and then Freddie Freeman was played by Jack Dylan Grazer. Grown-up Freddie, Adam Brody from... Where was he?
He used to be on the OC.
Yes. That's right. Yeah, most noticeable from that. Most notable of all of the superhero forms.
Right. One of the other things that I really liked about this film is that it felt like an 80s throwback film in a lot of ways, particularly in the boardroom scene, which was, I think, pretty scary. Having the 7 deadly sins just take out that whole boardroom. And I think one of the things that I miss from 80s films is having kind of really scary moments, right? So nowadays movies are very kind of safe, family friendly, but I remember growing up and watching a movie like Gremlins, and that movie just scaring the crap out of you but still loving it. And so I think they did a good job with kind of making those stakes feel like an actual threat and be actually scary.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad that they didn't like hold their punches, whatever. That they just yeah, these monsters will mess you up, and here they go, actually killing people on screen.
Threw his
so-
brother right out the window.
Yeah,
Like without hesitation. I was like,
Gangsta.
whoa, he's dead. All
Yeah.
right, well.
I thought he was gonna like spare his his father to be like to the
Live with
others.
it. Yeah.
No, and it was
Live
like
with your guilt.
live with their guilt. No, like, yeah, agreed. You can have him. Like, oh damn, they just killed that old dude. All right.
Yeah, they went ham.
Yeah.
Which is that's great.
Ham on Shazam. I also really liked the kind of subplot of him trying to find his birth mother, and then
Yes.
just having this huge built up moment kind of like reduced to a lot more of like a realistic scenario. Like she, I thought they're gonna be like, oh god, she's dead, and it's gonna be like, oh, and like, no, she lives like down the street. And they're like, oh.
And the shitty boyfriend's name was Travis.
Yeah.
Can't tell you how much I love that.
Yeah. I'll be right there, Travis. Get back here, you bitch. Yeah.
Well, and I think that goes to a couple of the themes that were going on in the film. I think, and I wrote down here, there was a few of them. One was definitely family, right? There was this theme of family and how it can really be your source of strength. And that's where you see Billy share his power with the rest of his family. Whereas with Shyvana, he's very isolated from the rest of his family, and he wants that power all for himself.
And not only that, Billy really didn't get a full grasp of what he can do until later on in the film. Like he got his real strength from his family.
He
The
sucks for most of the film. And
Yeah,
I love it.
exactly.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And then when he finally, because like they're trying to do the prayer, and he won't put his hand in, and so he's just resisting family the entire time. He wants his real family, his mom, who turns out to not be that great of a person, and
She's misunderstood.
yeah,
Whatever.
and,
She
Mama
just left her kid.
yeah, and she ends up in a bad situation herself. That was very, very poetic. He goes, I think you need this, the
Yeah.
compass.
Yeah.
He goes, I think you need this more than I do.
Yeah.
And then that was a nice moment. And when he finally puts his hand in for the prayer and stuff, or over dinner and stuff, that was pretty cool.
Well, it was also, they had that visual callback too with holding the staff. I think that's also all the family members putting their hands in. So I thought that was a nice little motif that they had there with all the putting the hands in and connecting them together. One of the other themes of the film I thought was what you want versus what you need. So I think a lot of this, in a lot of ways, this movie was about wish fulfillment and what would you do with these powers and
Right.
what do you really want, and Billy goes out and he's kind of doing all this selfish stuff with these powers, and he's not really doing anything good. He's not really growing as a person, and he's actually pretty destructive. And it's not until he realizes that he needs to be responsible to the rest of his family that he really finds some actual fulfillment. And I thought that was a theme that was done pretty well as well. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I liked that, his personal character arc was just like, what would any typical 14-year-old do if they got superpowers? They would just, have fun, make mischief, etc. But when he finally... Buy beer, yeah.
And
I
then
would
the
like
reality of what beer tastes like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I had my first beer, it was not good.
No, I love that scene, by the way, where they try the beer and then they come back with like
all their
Fritos.
their junk food and stuff.
But yeah, like I think it was great kind of showing him like he was just playing around, lightning fingers, and then he actually causes real life consequences that puts people's lives in danger.
Yeah, when he blew up that guy's phone.
Yeah.
That's
Damn
what
it.
you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be a
Like,
mess with that
someone had a Samsung. Heyo. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Take that, Samsung.
Yeah. This video
episode is sponsored
by Apple.
Samsung.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure.
wait, no, Apple. That makes more sense.
Nailed it. Anyway, when he almost kills a bunch of people on a bus, and he was just like, "Oh snap! I gotta be careful with where I'm pointing these
Well, and
things."
he didn't
I have
even really,
responsibility.
Yeah.
notice that.
Yeah.
He's like, "Did you see that?" To Freddy, he was like, "I just saved all those people." He goes, "Yeah, you put them in danger."
Yeah.
Like he's just being so selfish that he doesn't even realize it.
So, kind of going off of that, this moment where Freddy is arguing with Shazam, and then that's being broadcast over the local news or whatever. Why would they pick that as B-roll though? I get that it's supposed to be a plot point, but realistically speaking, you wouldn't do that. But that's just my gripe, knowing my real job.
I was like when I watch movies or TV shows with my brother-in-law. He's a cop, and then so they'll show cops doing stuff. He goes, "They would never do that," and I'm like, watching a movie, man. Like, of course they're not gonna do that. This is a movie. It's not real.
Yeah.
Do you ever
That's
feel
kinda
like that when
funny.
you watch like wrestling portrayed in movies or on the screen?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. It's like, that's not the name of that move.
Yeah.
That would drive me insane. They're like, oh, it's a atom smasher. It's just like,
The
that's,
fist twister.
that's a suplex.
Yeah.
It's just a normal suplex. There's nothing special there. Yeah,
Steel.
I guess. Yeah, blue steel.
So anyway, that's my like very, very tiny nitpicky. Obviously, there's suspension of disbelief, and it's meant to drive the plot
Yeah.
or whatever. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for the wish fulfillment part of it. And like you brought up earlier, it's like big, like what you do as a child, and then as a grown up, what would you do in that scenario?
Yeah. Well, and that actually brings me to one of my few critiques of the film, is that for you guys, did it feel like Billy, when he was Shazam, did he feel like a completely different character than when he was as a kid?
Yes.
He felt like way more hyper and like way more excitable and like not really he just felt like a completely different character.
It wasn't a consistent character
Yes.
throughout. Yeah, that would be an issue, and that's also where I was like, that young kid actor, he was I think he was a better actor than Zach Levy. Is it Levi or Levy?
I think it's Levi. Zachary Levi.
Okay. Yeah. I mean they're both capable, but it might be the younger kid was more of a serious actor, where Zach's playing the character like happy-go-lucky, everything is awesome,
right.
whereas this kid is just like troubled by his past. So there's like you said, it's definitely two different characters.
And it could have been an acting choice where like with the kid, he wanted to, as a child, he wants to portray being an adult more, but then when he is an adult, he kind of reverts into that more childlike state. So it could very much have been a choice on both their part.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, it just seems like a genuine response to like if you all of a sudden turn into like this jacked like 30-year-old guy that shoots lasers out of your fingers, you'd be pretty like, oh my god, about it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering though, because when the younger when he's Billy, the way he handles stuff is usually like he kind of run from stuff. Like that was kind of his default, was like, I just need to get out of here. Whereas, as Shazam, he's not exactly doing that. But yeah, it might be because he has powers.
I disagree. I think he is actually running, especially when Savannah shows up. He's doing a lot of running.
Yeah,
He's
that's
doing a
true.
lot of getting away. And it's not until the end there that when he reconnects with the family, that he's actually able to stand up and face him.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's doing a lot of running, and I think that's one of Billy's traits in the film and Shazam's traits, and they kept that going, and I like that a lot. Did you... Oh, okay. So this movie is also produced by Dwayne Johnson, and if you haven't heard the news, Dwayne Johnson revealed a couple years ago that he's going to be playing Black Adam. Did you guys catch the Black Adam tease at all?
No, I didn't catch it.
Okay.
I was looking for it, and I didn't catch it.
So when they're in the wizard's lair, he talks about the 7 thrones, right? And he talks about how we sent one of our champions to go find the whatever it was, and the wizard shows one of the wizards off doing that. And so at the end, with the family, with Shazam and the Shazamily, there's only 6 of them. Which means there's a 7th throne, there's a 7th superpowered out there, and so the implication is that it's whoever that other warrior was, and he's out there somewhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah, didn't even catch that. I didn't even think about counting while I was I was watching.
They kept mentioning 7 a lot of times. They're like,
Yes.
we have the 7 thrones, the 7 sins, the 7 wizards are to counter the 7 deadly sins. and all
Married
that.
Children brought in that kid.
Yeah.
His name was 7.
Yeah.
The end of Married Children? No? Last season, they brought in a kid. His name was 7.
So they had the 7 wizards that was to counter the 7 deadly sins, and Shavana was the embodiment of the 7 deadly sins. And so I was keeping track. I was like, okay, there's only 6 wizards, so which means there's one more out there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, I was actually wondering if at some point they were going to have, and I didn't want it to happen, but I was worried that Dr. Savannah was going to turn into Black Adam, like a
Yeah.
Black Adam form, and it was just going to be The Rock. And like I was like, I don't want this asshole to be The Rock, like like I want.
Oh, like if he said the magic word,
Right.
like then he would be.
Then he would turn into The Rock
Yeah.
as Black Adam.
Yeah.
But like that wouldn't be as cool.
Apparently, his ultimate form is a
Islander.
Islander guy. Yeah. There we go.
It's who he identifies that as.
Yeah.
I'm a trans Islander person.
That's staying in.
That's a thing.
But is there anything you guys want to kind of talk about before I get to the mid credits sequence, the mid and the end?
No, that was it. Overall, I love the film. I really enjoyed.
The humor was great. I like that.
Yeah, the humor was really good. It was almost it was very close to being too much humor. Like I was like, okay, we're doing too much at every point in the film. There's humor, but I thought there was enough balance there, especially with Billy, the human form, with him and his mom and just his
They
struggle.
grounded it.
Yeah, so it was a balance. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Had a real fun time.
The one thing I want to mention was that I thought it was kind of weird that it was clearly meant to be a Christmas film that was released in April.
Yeah, that was weird. They kept on bringing Christmas more.
Yeah, like, oh, I guess
All right.
Aquaman bumped them from that slot.
I
so.
guess so. No, it was weird.
Well, Iron Man 3 did the same thing.
Yeah. So anyway, whatever. Like, it didn't detract from the experience.
I think
it just,
Die Hard was released in July.
Was it?
I think so.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
Yeah, it
been
was.
done.
I did notice that
yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like Santa's literally running amok in the movie, just like, oh my god, that was crazy. But yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the mid-credit scene, and then I've got something that I wanted to bring up. But first, so the mid-credit scene, we see Dr. Savannah. Sorry, thank you. Savannah. He's in his cell and he's working his thing, and then we see. What do we see, Andy?
Oh, we see the bookworm with the voice box thing.
Mr. Mind.
Yeah.
Mr. Mind, who I have no previous experience with.
Yeah,
And so
before Shazam, I watched. There was a couple of videos online where they break down the history of Shazam, and I was like, "Oh, cool! Yeah, I'll watch that." So I could kind of have a bit of information. And I don't know. I guess I watched a couple of things because as soon as I'm all, "Oh, that's Mr. Mind," like I knew right away. So that was really interesting for me. It was kind of fun. So it's a bit of a. I don't know if it's a deep dive. Like I don't know how current that villain is in like DC universe, but in the Fawcett comics, that was his main villain was Mr. Mind.
is more so than Black Adam?
Yeah, that was like his first villain, was Mr.
okay.
Mind. Yeah.
you
That was
know-
his Lex Luthor. So,
Do you know if Black Adam is a DC creation or is that also a Fawcett
they didn't
creation?
delve into
Okay.
that. I don't believe they delved into that in those videos.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on. I just saw like a caterpillar like talking, and like it was one of the few moments.
The fuck is happening right now?
It was one of the very few moments when I got to be like a general audience member. So normally I'm the person in the theater who like someone goes like, "Oh, who's that?" I'm like, "Oh, it's that's Thanos. Like he's gonna be the big thing later." And I tell them,
educating the
yeah,
people.
and this is the first time where I got to be like, I have no idea what's going on. I am totally lost.
Yeah.
So it
That's
was
me.
Yeah, it was a new experience for me, and it was weird.
I was a little bit thrown off. I'm like, is this are they going like Alice in Wonderland with this route, or worm, or well, honestly, my first impression was like, oh, he's using this little caterpillar thingy as like his avatar.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, like he is the caterpillar. I'm like, oh.
That's what I thought too. Like
Okay.
someone was remote controlling this
Because like it had like
caterpillar.
a little voice box
Yeah,
thing. Right?
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's Mr. Mind. Yeah, it's awesome.
But I liked the whoever was like the voice actor. I really enjoyed their work.
And then we had the post-credit scene, which was a little shout out to Aquaman.
I don't even remember the post. What was it? I
He
saw
was-
it. I stayed for it.
Basically, so they was calling back to when Freddy and Billy were doing all the different tests on Freddy's for Billy's powers.
Yeah.
And they were trying to see if he could talk to fish. And it was kind of a thing where he's like, "Oh, that's a stupid power." And then like Freddy's got like the Aquaman shirt on, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's right." So it was just like a little nod to Aquaman.
Right on. Oh. All right.
What can I do with fish? Oh, I don't know. Command the 7 seas. Yeah.
Freddy was so good. I love Freddy.
Yeah.
Freddy was-
That's such a good actor.
Well, Freddy was good, and I think that's a perfect segue to bring me to one of the things that I wanted to talk about. So we mentioned how this movie is intentionally inclusive with its cast, with casting different races, and having a mixed gendered family. You have male superheroes, you have female superheroes, you have African American superhero, Asian superhero, Latino.
And the Latino character, Pedro. There was a slight hint there that he's gay.
Yeah, I remember someone saying that.
They teleported into. I caught that during the movie. So they kept on teleporting in and out of the strip club, which was a great bit actually. Like it was very fun. I like that they didn't show you the inside of the strip club. It was just them coming out. So that kind of it keeps it under a certain age group that you can show the people. And so that was a bit fun. So when they get out as a family, as they get out of there, Pedro's like, not my thing, So that's the nod to let you know. It's just like, you have a Latino character and he's gay. So.
Yeah. So there's also some LGBTQ inclusion there, and then with Freddy you have a disability inclusion, and so I was watching the movie and I was a big fan of Freddy. I thought, just much like you said, Scott, he's great. He's a character who is funny. In a lot of ways, he's the heart of the film. He's very self-deprecating about his disability. I like that they never explain why he has a disability. They never tell you if he was born that way, if it was traumatic. I think what you normally see is they would flash back to like Freddy's when he was younger, and maybe there was a car accident, and that's how his parents died, and this is why he has a disability, and this is why he's in the foster home.
Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. I know the Darla character. I do remember her from the books, the New 52. So they would have Shazam as a backup.
Right.
Gary Frank was the artist, amazing artist. Jeff Johns was the writer on him.
Right.
And so I do remember Darla's character being that, that ray of sunlight, like wanting to make this foster family, like, this is my true family. These are the people that care about me. So I do remember her character, specifically. And I do believe Freddy's character was in there, and he did have the
elbow crutch.
The elbow crutch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really like that they never explain where it comes from, because whenever you see a character with a disability in film, the question is always why. Why is this person like this? We have to know why. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, you don't get to know why. Mm-hmm. With disability, a lot of people think that it's okay to kind of come up to you and ask you, very personal medical questions. Like, oh, how did you end up in that wheelchair? Why do you have this crutch? Why do you have that prosthetic? And I like that they never delve into that. It's just who he is. He references it in a self-deprecating way in a lot of ways. I think the joke is, foster kid with a disability, I have it all, or something like that.
Why so grim?
Yeah.
I laughed so hard at that.
So he was super self-deprecating.
That was great.
And he loves superheroes. And watching that character, I thought in a lot of ways, Freddy is me. Freddy is who I was in high school. I loved superheroes. I was self-deprecating. I was a joker, very fast-talking.
The same.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I felt like it was me. And so then we get to the scene where all these characters get superpowered, and they all say Shazam. You see the crutch just fall down, and Freddy comes out, and he is Captain Marvel Jr., if you read the comics. He is completely superpowered, and his disability goes away, and my heart just dropped. Because in a movie that was very purposeful with its inclusion, it felt like disability inclusion was kind of left off the table. And I use the term disability erasure, because it's the idea that if you're going to be a superhero, if you're going to have these powers, then you can't have your disability, that it has to go away. And it's something that I think people in the disability community would have really, really liked to have seen, because in a lot of ways we don't get that representation. You know, a lot of roles a lot of roles that include disability are played by able-bodied actors. The actor who played Freddy is actually an able-bodied actor, so you know we don't always have that representation there, and we didn't get that representation as a superhero.
Did he? I can't remember. Did he walk? Because I just remember him floating. So I can't even remember him walking as a superhero.
When they all when the mist dispersed and they all were in their superhero form, they were all standing together. So I imagine he can.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, he was standing there, and it was it was particularly the image of the crutch falling.
So I'm wondering if the explanation would hurt or hinder that situation.
Yeah. So
for instance, let's say, because they didn't really get into it, so you don't know if it, like, let's say it was an accident, it wasn't something they could repair or something like that, right? Like let's say it's a tendon, like Achilles tendon or something, and affected his ability to walk or whatever. Like the superhero magic, for lack of a better word, fix the tendon, right? So is that good or bad? I was curious about this because I know you talked about it briefly. We did a radio show, so I didn't really know like where.
So the implication in what you're saying is that there's something wrong that needs to be fixed, right? The using your words, the tendon was bad. You know,
tendon was injured to the point where they could no longer repair it. Yes.
So the implication that there's something wrong to be fixed. Now let me ask you guys this: if Freddy was missing a limb, if he was missing his left arm, and then became Shazam or a Shazam character, would you expect the limb to be there or to not be there?
Probably not be there because it's not there.
Okay. So so why would it be? Why is that one more acceptable as opposed to the fixing of a tendon?
So my question is, so Pedro is an obese character. He's extremely overweight. He's very overweight.
Okay.
Let's just call him overweight.
Okay.
Are you more okay with him being jacked as a superhero?
Or were you not okay with that?
So that's something that I also wanted to talk about too, that, you know, in addition to the disability erasure, there's also fat phobia. It implies that, you know, fat is bad and you're incapable of being a superhero. But I mean, if they had designed like a heavier set superhero, I think that would have been just as valid, you know, to kind of reflect.
Yeah, I was just curious. Yeah. Like this. I'm just curious as to the thoughts of like, how do you feel with that as well?
Well, and if you look at those suits are very cartoonishly padded,
yes.
Right?
That was actually something I wanted to bring up that I completely forgot about until now was Zach Levi or Levi. He looked like when they would do close-ups, I'm like, oh, his neck's pretty big. Like, he looks like he's jacked, but I'm like, but you look at the costume and you're like, he's jacked, but they look like they added some.
And I think that was part of the bit. I think that was part of the gag to make it cartoonishly like muscled.
I kind of wish they wouldn't make it as cartoony, but whatever. It was. I mean, I had a good time either way.
It was part of the charm of the film.
Yeah, for that film it works. But yeah, just Pedro and Freddy.
Yeah.
You know.
And so like I actually I got into a little bit with people on Twitter. The worst place on the internet is Twitter. And they were talking about how it's unbelievable because a superhero with a disability is too much. It's too much of a weakness that the bad guys could exploit. It's too much of a liability to the rest of the family. And they likened it to Superman's hands being made out of kryptonite, saying that basically that the disability is the same as the weakness.
That doesn't even make any sense. That doesn't make sense.
Yes.
I mean,
yes, Twitter, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Twitter, the place where logic always prevails. So
you tell me like, so he's got a limp foot, so it's like It's like saying Superman's got kryptonite hands.
Yes.
No, that's not.
And-
that doesn't even track.
And so, like, my counter argument to that is, Batman is a human, right? He's
Right.
literally vulnerable to everything. Everything that you and I are vulnerable to.
Yes.
Bullets, fire, stabbing, drowning,
Right.
bad weather, all of it.
Yeah.
And no one sits there when someone points a gun at Batman. Nobody goes like, "Oh, that's unbelievable." You know, he just does it. So
Right. He's Batman.
yeah, so
and this is all make believe.
yeah, it's all fantasy. It's wish fulfillment in a lot of ways.
Yes.
As we were talking earlier, and someone was saying like, well, how would that work? How could you even incorporate that? And the way that I
Incorporate what?
the disability. How would you incorporate Freddy's disability into his superhero persona?
Yeah.
And the way that I put it is, you know,
That's an easy fix.
you have them transform. The cane falls. He steps out of the smoke. He's got this giant ripped body. He takes a step forward. Notices that he falls down. It could be a great comedic
still need
moment.
this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Picks it back up.
Yeah.
He can even use it when he's fighting.
That's what
you
what I was thinking was like.
They even show it in the credits scene too, with like a little animation. They show Freddy's superhero persona hitting a bad guy with the cane.
Really? I
Yeah.
missed that.
Yeah. So like, and that's why I asked. I was like, I don't even remember him walking. I just remember him floating, like the entire time floating. I'm like, I could still have a disability, but not I could fly. So I don't need my cane because I could fly. So that's why I asked. But Anyway.
Ooh, then he can use a cane as like a lightning rod or something. I don't know.
Right. But if they had just somehow incorporated it into
Right.
the superhero design, I think, you know, there would have been a whole community that would have just really, really been happy.
Yeah.
And people were asking me like, well, what did you expect? What did you expect them to do? And I said, well, I expected them to do exactly what they did, to kind of take it away. But I want to use this opportunity to kind of keep that conversation going and saying, you know, we're talking about Shazam as one of the most inclusive films, superhero films out there. And I'm sitting here saying like, well, yes, but there's still this group that we're not properly seeing our representation. So that was a big issue for me.
How did you feel about the Pedro being jacked? Overweight.
You know, I think I was a little more distracted by the disability erasure that I didn't really, to think about Pedro didn't really come to mind with me.
Those fat people.
If you had to do
Quote unquote
anything-
Travis Revis.
Yeah.
You can at him at Revis Travis.
If there's one takeaway from this entire conversation that we're probing into, it's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What Scott just said.
Sorry.
That I'm going to let people take out of context. So.
It would, you know, in all seriousness, no, that actually would have been a really good scene if it was like, in fact, like, okay, yeah, he was floating most of the time, but as soon as he can stand on his own. He doesn't need the crutch to just stand, but for mobility's sakes, he does need the cane. So that would have been a really funny comedic scene. Whoop, okay, still need this, you know, like it would have been, yeah.
And so, I was talking to Jake Adams about this, one of my writers on another project.
What project is that, Travis?
Super Abled Comics on Kickstarter right now.
Is it available right now?
It's not available right now, but it's on Kickstarter.
Is it available on Kickstarter?
It is available on
Until
Kickstarter.
when?
Until May 1st.
May 1st. You don't say.
We were having this conversation, and Jake is an acquired amputee where he lost his fingers in a traumatic accident. And Jake was saying how he felt envy that Freddy lost his disability. And he said, you know, I wish I could just get rid of my disability. And honestly, there were times when I was younger that I wished I could do that too.
Right.
But that kind of takes me back to what I was saying about the theme of what you want versus what you need.
Yeah, wish fulfillment.
Yeah. And the idea that there's a lot of us out there with disabilities who wish that our disabilities would just go away.
Okay.
But
that was one of my questions to you as well, because I heard you talking about it briefly, but something you actually even brought it up first was you're like, this is wish fulfillment, and that was kind of what I was going to ask you. I'm like, well, isn't this all fantasy? This is all wish fulfillment.
It is fantasy and it is wish fulfillment, but you know, how many young teenagers would you ask, well, don't you wish that you weren't gay?
I understand the point though. Overall, you're like, just by doing this simple thing, you know, how many people out there, like, you're not struggling with,
No.
like you said, you were Freddy when you were younger, but now as a grown up, you got your Fin Fam. You're like, hey man, I'm me.
I'm not struggling now,
Right.
but I struggled then.
Exactly.
And I really
So
could
you
have
were-
used that
Absolutely.
person to look up to say
that's
like here is me as I was in high school.
Yeah.
Here's like, look, I could be a hero and still have a disability, because I felt like I couldn't. And I feel like the signals in the media is also heroes don't have disabilities, you
Right.
know? And talking about what you were saying about wish fulfillment, how many young individuals wish that they weren't gay, maybe wish that they weren't transgendered, maybe wish they weren't Latino or Black or Asian in a predominantly white community, you know, to not be that minority. That wish fulfillment is there to not be in that minority, but the reality is we really could use that figure that stands out and says it's okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That was actually one of my bigger questions was like, you know, like the wish fulfillment part of it, and then so you have people, you know, that they're like, yeah, I'd love it if what was Jake's fingers? Is that,
Yeah, Jake
yeah,
lost
it's like,
the
yeah, I would love if I had them all back,
Yeah.
and you know, whatever, and so like the fact that you have both sides of the coin, where like, yeah, no, I'm fucking rad, like. Give me more muscles or whatever. Cool. You know?
Well, and that was just in that moment. Like I've talked to Jake, and he's very grateful to be part of the disability community right now. And then one of the other things that I was talking about with him is he was talking about well maybe in the sequel it becomes kind of like a drug for Freddy, where he spends more of his time in his superhero form, and he needs to, you know, accept who he is as an individual with his disability, and I can definitely see them going there, and I think that's an important story to be told.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think there's a lot of stories already in the media with disabled characters where their storyline is coming to terms with their disability. So I know that kind of sounds conflicting, but you know, we'll see where it goes.
Life's not easy.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, like you were saying, in your younger years, you're like, I'm sure you were just like, you know, what the fuck? Like, I wish I, you know, was this and that or whatever, you know. But as you got older, you're like, no, I'm who I am.
Yeah.
So there's different stories for every part. Like you, in your current Travis state, would be like, dude, they should have left that in and this and that.
Yeah.
Young Travis might have been like, you know, like Jake was initially when he saw it, he's like, yeah, right?
Right. But
You know?
and that's what that would have been what I wanted, but that's not necessarily what young Travis needed.
Right.
Right.
And I think like also just the conversation as far as diversity and inclusion, you know, having a racially diverse cast, you know, of various genders and, you know, implied
Sexuality.
sexuality, you know, that's all steps in the right direction. But I also think, you know, we also need to understand that we still need to kind of vision a more broad sense of diversity, which means different, you know, body types, disabilities versus being able-bodied. So I mean, again, I think we're going in the right direction, but we're not there yet.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
we shouldn't be like patting ourselves on the back yet.
I don't know. I think it's
well,
okay. Why not? Why not?
I do applaud Shazam for being as inclusionary as it is, and now I want to talk about how we can take that next step.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with taking the next step and like obviously knowing that.
I guess like
No, I know what
not
you're
having
saying.
we solved racism.
Right, it's like, okay, we're done now.
Yeah.
Let's stay with where we are. No, I understand that, but like you do have to realize that like life's fucking tough.
Yeah.
You know, so take the wins when you can. Hey, this is the step in the right direction. Wonder Woman was a step in the right direction. This movie's a step in the right direction. You can applaud those things, you know. But I think more to what you're saying is is let's not rest on our laurels. Like let's not get stuck here. But you can pat yourself on the back. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Well, those were our thoughts on Shazam.
We got real at the end, people. Just kidding. Well, we kind of, but it's all right.
We are the Accidental Aliens. Please, if you like this video, share it with your friends. Comment below on your thoughts on Shazam. Maybe you think I'm totally off base.
Maybe you think fat people are cool, not like Travis. You care about them. Talk to Travis. At Travis Rivas.
Actually, at Rivas Travis.
That's what I said.
On both Twitter and Instagram. RIVAS TRAVIS.